Mr. Scott, you have made quite a splash as a late entrant in the gubernatorial race with your statewide advertising blitz. While your campaign has generated a substantial amount of interest and support, your campaign has also tempered by negative perception surrounding your tenure as CEO at HCA and its subsequent fine by the federal government for its Medicare billing practices. First, please clarify for our audience what occurred during and after your time as CEO at HCA, and second, how do you intend to get your message out there and overcome the negative perceptions surrounding your work at HCA in a state that is extremely sensitive to Medicare-related concerns?
Well, clearly people make mistakes. When you're the CEO of a company, you ultimately have to take responsibility, and I do. I put effort into making sure that we had the lowest prices, which we did, the best outcomes, which we did, and best patient satisfaction, which we did. We should have put more effort into internal auditors, external auditors, but that's the difference. I learned lessons, and you learn lessons in business. That's the difference between business and government. In government, you don't learn lessons, you're never held accountable. In business, if someone makes a mistake, you have to take responsibility, and you have to own up to it, and you have to change. And there's accountability. The way we're getting our message out is I always talk to people, answer the questions, and then there's on our website, rickscottforflorida.com, we answer questions on that website. And there's also another website called thetruthaboutrickscott.com, and we go through the history of Columbia HCA. And it's a great way for people to understand what happened.
Now, Florida's budgetary shortfall this year was over $3 billion for fiscal year 2010-2011. And it would have been greater had we not relied on federal stimulus dollars, porculus dollars, borrowed from overseas. What would be the strategy as governor to control spending and produce budgets that either are balanced or reduce spending moving forward?
Well, we've got to move away from special interests controlling our budget. So the first thing I would do is take every state agency and say, what's the purpose? And have a measurable, definable purpose for that agency that is outcome oriented. And then measure constantly, and I believe by doing that, no different than what I've done in business, you can reduce cost, you can eliminate ineffective programs, and you have a lot more success. So I believe by doing that, we can drive down the cost of our state.
What are the specific measures the state of Florida can take to nullify or block the implementation of Obamacare in the next several years? And do you support the repeal of the state of Florida's 52 separate health insurance mandates that cause the price of health insurance artificially to rise?
Well, on the mandates, we have to look at every mandate and make sure that we allow consumers to choose what they want. When I started Conservatives for Patients' Rights, we had 4 pillars: the right to choose your own doctor and choose the plan that you want. We need more competition. The third was accountability, where you buy your insurance instead of relying on your employers. The way that will happen is if you get the same tax breaks as an employer, you'll buy your insurance, you'll buy what you want. And the final thing is we've got to reward people for taking care of themselves. Lower healthcare, lower insurance costs if you eat right, exercise, things like that. So now with regard to Obamacare, we need to repeal it. At the state level, we need to let everyone know, our senators, our congressmen know, the cost to the state. And that should have happened in the campaign or during when they were trying to pass Obamacare. So what we need to do now is we need to make sure we have a law that says that will never be implemented in the state of Florida. Well, I support the Arizona immigration bill. I believe that if you're here doing something illegal in our country, you should be able to be asked if you're legal or not. Now, I believe that we need to secure borders. We need to force the federal government to secure borders. We need to make sure we have a legal immigration policy, not an amnesty policy, so people can come to this country if we need them as workers in this country. So, but with regard to Arizona, I completely support the Arizona bill.
First of all, Florida has a very unique immigration issue, whereas most of the people that come here overstay their visa, hence becoming illegal aliens. Do you feel that Florida needs a bill similar to that? And if you were governor, would you support and sign into law a bill similar to that would reflect Florida's illegal immigration issues?
Right. I would support and sign a bill that was similar to the Arizona bill. And the reason is, if you're here illegally, right, and you violate our laws, if you're violating our law, we ought to be able to ask you if you're legal or not. And if you're illegal, you should be deported. I believe we've got to force the federal government to secure our borders. I think we need to come up with a legal immigration policy that works, which we haven't done. All right. But we have to. If you violate the law, you should be asked if you're legal or not, and if you're illegal, you should be deported.
Small business owner to big business owner. how do you feel about E-Verify? Do you support it in the private sector and the public sector?
I support E-Verify. I think that we need, one of the things we need to be doing is we need to make it easy for our employers to comply with the law. I mean, employers want to comply with the law, so we need to make it easy for them to comply with the law, and E-Verify does that.
You have come out with your latest press release, pretty much ripping into your opponent, Attorney General Bill McCollum, and tying him to Jim Greer and indirectly tying him to Charlie Crist. Like I said, RPOF Chairman Jim Greer, what are your thoughts? Has been indicted and arrested. What are your thoughts of the outgoing and disgraced established members, like I mentioned, Jim Greer, Delmar Johnson, and Governor Charlie Crist? How can the RPOF restore its image and trust with the public?
Well, we're going to have a change. We have to bring in outsiders that are not tied to the establishment. They're not tied to try and defend what the establishment did. There should have been complete transparency at the Republican Party. Attorney General McCollum should have investigated from day one to make sure there wasn't a violation, but it appears that all he's done is defend Jim Greer and slow down the investigation. So we've got to bring in new blood, an outsider's view, and we've got to change this we take care of each other strategy.
Now, how complicit do you feel Governor Crist could be in this whole mess?
Well, we don't know, but it was his party chairman. All right, so it doesn't look good, and there doesn't appear to be much transparency in all that's going on.
How do you think his response has been as far as the oil spill in the Gulf? And what would you have done? Would you have done anything different?
Well, I think the first thing we've got to make sure that we put all of our effort into solving the problem. The first thing we have to do is what can we do to help BP and Transocean to solve the problem? Anything the state can do or the federal government can do, that's the first thing we got to do to prevent the problem. Second, we've got to make sure we hold them accountable. We've got to make sure that we prevent our beaches from being ruined, and also that we take care of our citizens that are being impacted. So we need to be very aggressive in making sure that whoever's responsible reimburses, takes care of our citizens that are getting hurt.
So what you're saying, you continue being a proponent of offshore oil drilling?
I believe that we have to become energy independent. So we've got to look at offshore drilling, we have to look at nuclear, we have to look at alternative fuels. Now, we have to do offshore drilling that's safe, and we have to take care of our beaches. But the process I'd go through is step one, let's solve the problem we have today. Step two, let's figure out what caused the problem to make sure we prevent that again. All right? And then three, let's get ourselves energy independent and do offshore drilling safely.